Hello and welcome to The Bigger Picture, the politics show that goes behind the day-to-day news and tries to bring you the bigger picture. I'm Ian Henshall. We will ignore the trivia in the media, the politics of the Westminster elite. It turns most of us off, but the mainstream media seem addicted to it, so you won't get the latest Westminster gossip from us, nor will you get the fear-based reporting that tells us we have enemies in every part of the world, from Calais to Beijing to Moscow. Each week, we look at two subjects and try to outline the biggest story. This week, we have our reporter Fran on fracking, and then Roy Hunter on the activists who say the corporate lobby is dragging us inch by inch towards a new form of totalitarianism. Hydraulic fracturing, or fracking, is a method to extract oil or gas. Highly pressurised water, sand and chemicals are pumped underground, fracturing shale, thus releasing the oil or the gas. A British Geological Survey estimates 1,300 trillion cubic feet of shale gas just in northern England, with 10% exploitable, and other areas likely to produce significant amounts too. The UK government is keen to give licences to fracking companies to start drilling around the UK. PM David Cameron said it could bring jobs, $3 billion investment, cheaper energy and energy security. However, there's another side to the fracking story. Our correspondent Fran has been investigating. Fran, what do you reckon? What have you found?
Well, Ian, the government is certainly very keen on fracking. Several top Conservative MPs have links to pro-fracking groups and companies. At consecutive Conservative Party fundraising dinners, many attendees were oil and gas industry billionaires, along with representatives from pro-fracking companies including BP, Shore Capital and Union Jack Holdings. And as well as tax breaks for fracking companies, Cameron will allow cash-strapped local councils to receive all the business taxes collected from shale gas schemes instead of the usual 50%. Meanwhile, property and land values plummet in value when plans are made to start drilling. To make matters worse, companies seek to drill at depths of 300 metres or more under land and homes without the owner's permission. And this is despite a consultation where 99% of respondents objected. The government is due to vote on this very soon. And Helen Rimmer from Friends of the Earth said, this shows that the government is more concerned about the 1% that make money out of this industry rather than the mass of people who oppose it.
Okay, so we know the Conservatives, from the Bureau of Investigative Journalism, found that out about the Conservatives lobbying. But isn't this just opinion? A lot of this just opinion? What are the facts? Is it based on facts, these allegations?
Well, Ian, as America adopted fracking for some time, let's look at their experience. This summer, 2014, Environmental Science and Technology magazine has reviewed all the scientific studies carried out on fracking that's been happening in the US, and they have concluded that stronger safeguards are needed urgently, as both substantial concerns and major uncertainties need to be addressed.
Didn't the pro-fracking lobby produce evidence to suggest that fracking wasn't actually more dangerous than other types of drilling?
Well, yes, Ian, but top scientists and universities say that all those studies were funded by fracking companies, and the professors that were involved with those studies were found to have ties with the industry. Robert Howard from Cornell University says an industry-funded study is flawed because it was based only on evaluation of sites and times chosen by the industry itself.
Okay, so what do the independent studies? Can you give us some concrete results from the independent studies?
Well, we don't have enough independent studies because scientists are hampered by lack of full access to sites, and fracking companies refuse to disclose a list of all the chemicals being used. People do need accurate information to make informed choices.
And what did the independent studies conclude, the ones that there were?
Well, in the US, they've confirmed that fracking can cause methane gas contamination of domestic water, In Texas, a man lit a flame from his water supply. The methane was a match for that produced by a nearby fracking site because people tested it. Earthquakes are triggered by highly pressurised fracking fluid which affect fault lines that are deep underground. The Ohio Department of Natural Resources, for instance, documented an unusual increase in earthquakes since fracking began. And then there's health effects. Higher than normal cancer rates in people living near to fracking wells are due to the air and water contamination from carcinogens that are used in the drilling, and an added risk is from increased radioactivity which is present in waste fluids. The Colorado School of Public Health reports increases in birth defects in babies that were born near fracking wells. And complainants in legal cases against fracking companies, when they are accusing the companies of harming their health, they are hit with a lifelong gagging order.
I suppose, David Cameron would say, well, we've got to take a few risks because otherwise the lights will go out.
Well, Ian, the US Geological Survey says shale deposits in the US and in other countries are actually overestimated due to confusion over the amount of gas that it's possible to extract. Drilling for shale gas and oil is cheaper in the US than in many European and Asian countries due to differences in geology. In Poland, it's 3 times the cost of the US to frack for gas and oil. And now US energy companies are abandoning shale production in Poland. Also the Czech Republic, France, Germany and the Netherlands, they've all suspended fracking because they worry it's going to destroy their groundwater. US State Department spokesperson Mr. Hooper admitted there may never be a global shale gas revolution.
So if there's no money in it, where's the pressure coming from to do the fracking?
Maybe the answer lies in politics. US and EU energy companies have been targeting the EU with massive lobbying. They inundated EU regulators with pro-fracking reports, and it's alleged they even formed fake grassroots organisations, according to one report.
Wouldn't be the first time that had happened.
Then there's the issue of Ukraine. America loans money for fracking to Ukraine, whilst US Vice President Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, is a director of Ukraine's biggest gas producer, Burisma Holdings. In eastern Ukraine, locals are branded as terrorists by Kiev when they oppose fracking. Russia supplies many European countries, including Ukraine, with gas and oil. By promoting fracking, the US seeks profits for its energy companies, and at the same time they seek to weaken Russia economically. The aim is to get Europe to swap energy dependency from Russia or Saudi Arabia to the US. More dependency on US shale gas and oil could lever a more pro-Western line in European foreign affairs than they already have. However, Russia is also about to frack. BP has just signed with Rosneft, a Russian company, to exploit fracking in Russia, so it could change the whole situation.
Okay, so there's geopolitical machinations here which might even have something to do with the terrible bloodshed in Ukraine. What's the alternative to fracking? If we decide we don't want to get involved in any of this unpleasantness, what's the alternative to fracking?
Instead of giving tax breaks to fracking companies, why not give it to sustainable, renewable energy companies? We could be subsidising and using a combination of energy production by wind, water and solar. Incidentally, solar panels are now the same as or cheaper at the consumer level to produce electricity than conventional methods. There could be a scheme to place solar panels on roofs of blocks of social housing flats, for instance, with the added bonus of lifting people out of fuel poverty.
So even if we don't want Russian gas for whatever reason and we don't want fracking, we can still use, there are still other alternative sources of power and which are becoming a lot cheaper. Well, I suppose this debate will go on for a long time, and it seems extraordinary that in the run-up to an election the government is calling on, proposing legislation that will allow fracking companies to frack under under your own house without your permission, possibly, you know, causing all sorts of problems. It seems a long time since the Conservatives were the party of conservatism and the homeowner, doesn't it? Anyway, Fran, thanks very much for that, and no doubt we'll be taking up this issue again at some point.
Thank you, Ian.
Well, after the break, we're going to have Roy Hunter, who's got worries about whether we could be possibly slipping, without realising it, towards a police state, or at least some sort of totalitarianism. See you in a couple of minutes.